All right, guys, here we go with what's in the bag. I've been talking about this. Decided to do two parts since it was going to be a little long. So here we go with part one. And let's get into the bag. So I'm pretty stoked. I'm loving the update, especially now that these three different bags finally have a purpose. Now that you can select your bag before, multiplayer rounds. So my elite bag is kind of my main bag. This is my main slot here. Right now I'm just using the elite bag and the rookie bag, and basically the only difference between my two bags is a water skip disc. So basically I just scan the holes, and if there happens to be a hole that I need a water skip, I'll switch to my rookie bag. There you go. You can see the gold is the only different disc instead of the PD that's in my elite bags. So, but for most of the rounds I'm going to be using my elite bag, since there's not a ton of water skip holes. So I'm going to kind of go through my elite bag disc by disc, show you kind of highlight shots. I haven't really decided how to use this third bag yet. Maybe like a skip water skip disc or the paradigm. That's kind of what I'm thinking there, but we'll have to see. But here you go. This is my utility slots in my elite bag. We're going to start with the putters. Here's the Pure, my favorite putter in the game. I did a video a while back on the putter Harp combination, so it shows a lot more shots than I'm going to be showing in this video. So check out that video on why I really love the Pure and the Harp combination. But for the Pure, there's only a couple holes I use it on to ace. But I use it for a ton of throw-ins, basically up to 200 feet. I love the Pure. That's what I do. All my throw-ins basically within that distance. I know a lot of people are Harp or fuse throwers, even just greater than 50 feet or outside the circle using the fuse. But I've always thrown the Pure. So here we go. Let's get into it. Sunshine Glade, hole number one. Pure is the perfect disc for this hole. Middle chevron right on the basket there. And it's pretty much a straight pull with minor adjustments depending on what the wind's doing. The other hole that I really love the Pure is Blueberry Thicket hole 6. Top chevron right on the basket there, and about a half a disc of hyzer. Again, you got to adjust for the wind a little bit, but that's the other hole that I love to throw the Pure. So again, I throw it a ton. I throw it for most of my throw-ins, but I'm just showing ace holes. The next putter is the Harp. This is an awesome utility disc. This one saves me a bunch of times when I get stuck behind something and need something a little extra fade. The only thing I would consider right now changing my bag is going to an accurate roll Harp. There's a few players that have them, and it sounds like they're pretty awesome. So if I can get my hands on one, I'll probably be switching to an accurate roll. It's just kind of a rare disc right now. But for now, I'm loving this Harp. Again, check out my Pure Harp video combo for more shots, but I'm just going to show you the holes that I use it for aces. So Herringwoods 4, when I got a tailwind like this, default aim, some anhyzer, and I can get this to drop quite a bit. So that's a great disc for that hole whenever you have a tailwind. The other one that I thought of was Maple Hill. You can do it with default aim here. Again, the Harp is not one that I use a lot for aces, but I use it a ton for throw-ins, and I use it for kind of utility shots when I need to get around things. So next we'll go into our mid-range. We're going to look at the SVI. Basically, when I got my first one, I replaced the fuse and realized there's not a whole lot of difference. And I didn't throw the fuse a bunch anyway, so I just kept the SVI, and I've gotten used to it. It's a great disc. I definitely rely on it for certain holes and certain types of shots where I just need to throw it straight. Don't have a ton of ace holes with it, but there are a few that I really love it with. But yeah, it's a great disc. Very, very, very similar to the fuse. So check it out. So the first one is Sunshine Glade 3. I also throw the Warship on this one, but this can be a great one. You can either aim to the left or aim right at it and put some hyzer. Middle chevron right on the basket with about a full disc's worth of hyzer there, depending on the wind, as always. But there you go, dead center. That's a great hole for it. Now this next one, Windswept Fields, hole 6. If we got a left to right wind, either a 3 wind or a 4 wind, this is a great disc. And I've gotten this ace quite a few times in multiplayer with this disc and that wind. So there's the couple of holes for the SFI. Next one is my workhorse, which is the Warship. I mean, this is my main throw-in disc, from anywhere from like 190 to like 245 or so is kind of the range. But like 210, 230, this is just such a sweet disc, and I rely on it very heavily all throughout the game for throw-ins mostly, but I also have a bunch of ace lines for the Warship that I use a lot. So I'm excited to show you a lot of the holes that I use this on. So here we go with the Warship. Sunshine Glade, hole number 4. Again, I also use it for hole 3, but top chevron just above the basket, depending on the wind. And with this wind, I put a touch of hyzer on it right into the basket there. It's a great disc for that hole. Next hole, we got Blueberry Thicket, hole 5. I love it for this hole as well. It can get there in most winds. With this wind, I'm going to aim just below the basket. I kind of adjust my aim point depending on wind, but you can see the potential there. Love this disc. I've gotten that hole several times with the Warship. This one I normally only go for if I really need the ace, just because it is a little bit risky, but it's my most accurate line on this hole for an ace. The danger is going long. You end up in the trees a little bit, so that's why I usually throw the instinct there. This one, this is like the secret code to this hole. It's the easiest disc in my opinion to land safely, but you also got a good ace run with the Warship here. So if you ever struggle with that hole, just put a Warship in your bag and it'll fix all your problems. This one here is another great hole for the Warship. You got to make sure you put it out there and let it come back towards the basket. Again, this is another hole I've got a bunch of times using the Warship. This is another line I really love for the Warship, Pioneer Bay 5. Sometimes I'll throw it in multiplayer, depending on the wind. It's usually more of a daily challenge line, but if you can get pretty accurate with that line, even if you miss, it'll catch that log there. So I do throw that on in some multiplayer rounds. All right, next we're going to go with the Instinct, one of my favorite discs. I love it. Accurate roll. The roll feature allows you to kind of just go right at the basket and it'll stop and not go very far once you land. I use it on a ton of holes, not only ace runs, but throw-ins as well. So let's check it out. Again, like the combination, I used to have the River and the Instinct. I've switched to the Vandal. We'll talk about the Vandal a little bit, but we're going to start with Sunshine Glade 2. The Instinct is a great disc for this. Bottom chevron pointed right on top of the basket, and about a disc worth of anhyzer will usually get you there. So love the disc for that hole. Here's another one. Top chevron just above that tree. I went a little lower because of this wind, and I get this hole quite often with the Instinct. Great disc and very safe ace line. This one, unless it's a big tailwind, I'm throwing the Instinct. Bottom chevron kind of lined up like in the middle of the basket there. And this is another one I get all the time with this disc. This is one of my favorite lines for this disc. Very safe in my opinion for most winds. It can get a little risky in some winds, but for the most part, even if I miss this, I usually can still get birdie. But it's really not that hard to execute, and I get it quite often. Here's another one. It's more of a high one. I got this from Ethan from Yee. He's the one that shared this Explorer line. Again, if you don't know, the Instinct is basically the same disc as the Explorer. Very minor differences, but not much at all. Here's another. Sometimes I'll throw a Warship here, but most of the time I'm throwing the Instinct, and I'll get this hole every once in a while. It's a tough one to get, but I still drop it in there just like that. Every now and again, maybe 1 out of every 20 times. So that was the Instinct. Next is one of my favorite discs. So much so that I made a video just for the Vandal. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. I used to bag the River and the Explorer, and now I've gone to the Vandal and the Instinct. but I use it a ton. This is one of the discs that the longer it's in my bag, the more I'm throwing it. For throw-ins, for ace runs, all kinds of things. I love this disc and I use it all the time. If you haven't tried it, try it out. Check out my other video on it. I'm just going to show you kind of the holes that I use it for ace runs. But again, I use this disc all the time. First hole, blueberry thicket 4. You just aim just above the numbers there and pretty much a straight pull depending on what the wind's doing. You can drop this in pretty often. There's a forehand sapphire line I like as well. I kind of go back and forth, but I've been throwing that one a lot more. Here's another one I love in a calm wind. Just default aim, put some hyzer on it, and a lot of times I can get that one to drop too. Now this one's one of my favorite ones to get it to go. Once I see a 4 tailwind, whether it's to the left or right, I pull out the Vandal, put the bottom chevron right in line with the arrow, and this one is awesome to get in multiplayer. I've gotten it maybe 4 or 5 times with that wind, and you're definitely gaining strokes on the card. Here's another one that I started throwing it on a lot. I used to throw the sapphire, but I've switched to the Vandal on this hole, and I'm getting it a lot more often than I did with the sapphire. Now this one I switched recently just because I found it to be a way safer birdie line. So middle chevron kind of on that branch there. Basically a full thing of hyzer, and just like that, I've gotten it to bounce off that rock I think 3 times in multiplayer now with the Vandal. So loving that disc. Now on to one of my favorite discs in the game by far, the beast, the PD Accurate Glide. I've recently done a tribute video to it. It showed all kinds of aces with default aim, so check that one out. Still never had anyone claim second place, so if you want to try that challenge out, I'm still waiting on someone to email me another shot. But I'm going to show you some of my favorite ace lines with the PD. It killed me not to have this in the bag, so I'm loving having it back in the bag for most of my rounds. And there's just some holes where when I see the wind pop up, I just love having this disc in the bag. The Accurate Glide Sapphire is a little bit longer and it can do things this can't do, but this one definitely makes certain holes a lot easier. Blueberry Thicket 1, I get this ace quite a bit with the beast. A lot of these are pretty interchangeable with the Accurate Roll Sapphire, but again, the beast just makes it so much easier. This is one of the holes that the beast is a cheat code for this hole. Bottom chevron right on that rock and a straight pull down. Minor adjustments for wind, but here's another one. I love when I see a 1 wind on this hole and I have the beast in the bag, so I know there's a good chance that I'll get this ace just like that. And anytime you can get an Albie is awesome. Now this might be one of my favorite lines in the game that I found. Anytime I get a 1 wind, I am very tempted to throw this line. It comes with some risk, but I feel like I'm one of few players that have gotten that in multiplayer. I think I've gotten it 3 times in multiplayer. Here's another one that I actually am starting to run a lot more, and I love having the beast in the bag for this hole. It's actually a pretty safe bid. Middle chevron kind of right there where that branch meets the tree, and then almost a full thing of hyzer. And honestly, it's a pretty safe bid. If you miss, you're usually hitting that wall back there, or you're catching the branches and falling short. Here's another one that I love having the beast in the bag if I need to kind of run one. Usually I'm throwing the Accurate Roll Sapphire, but I'm much more accurate with the PD on that hole. This one's another one that I love having the beast back in the bag. You can see just default aim on a lot of winds. Sometimes I slide left or right depending on the wind, but I can get that one to drop quite often with default aim. But there you go, guys. There's part 1. We've done half the discs in the bag, so tune in for part 2 when I finish off the bag. Hope you're enjoying it. Hopefully that gives you some new ace lines. But yeah, for now, those discs aren't going anywhere. The Pure, the Harp, the Sphy, the Warship, the Instinct, the Vandal, and the PD are in the bag for good. Loving my bag right now. Loving the option to switch bags when I need a water skip disc. But again, stay tuned for part 2, and thanks for watching me play some DGV.